Is this thing on? Are we live?
Oh, hey, we didn't notice you there.
Oh, hi. Is that you? We didn't know you were.
Is it me you're looking for?
I don't think it is.
That's kind of funny. You have a hole on your left knee and I have a hole on my right knee.
It's like
we're meant to be.
We're whole brothers.
Eskimo brothers.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's the Input Delay podcast.
Hey.
It's me and Nick today. There's no one else here.
That's it.
Off the rails.
Screw you guys.
This is going to be weird.
Off the rails.
This is a more intimate, conversational, perhaps sexual podcast today. Me and Nick.
Interesting.
No one else.
Just the two of us.
Oh, we can podcast if we try. And Chris, Planamento, Sean, Greg, Eric, Sarah. I'm trying to think of all the people that have been on the podcast in the past. None of them are here. Just me and Nick. Just us. So it's going to be an interesting one. Nick, it's been a while since I've seen you. It's been like 2 weeks. What have you been up to?
Working, man. Retail is not fun during holidays.
Around this time? Yeah, it's a pain in the butt. Black Friday.
Yeah.
Black Friday.
Blah, 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 blah.
That's the problem with the rolling start. Like, I didn't get my mind set up. It just happened. We were like, all right, podcast.
Because you know what? I told you, hey, I read the show notes for once. And you were like, you know what? We don't even have to go over them. We're fine. Let's go.
So now we know that this podcast will never air. It's just going to burn up my computer because it's a cold day in hell because somebody read the fucking show notes that I did.
I had to come prepared because I didn't have two people to be my crutch. So.
Oh, yeah. What have you been playing this week?
Oh, man, this week.
Actually, I mean, we could probably go back 2 weeks because last week we didn't record a podcast. We released the one from the week previous because we had some audio trouble. So it's been a 2 week gap of like all the games of the year have been out.
I don't remember what I played 2 weeks ago. It was probably just more Dragon Age.
Yeah.
But this past week, Tales from the Borderlands came out. So I played episode 1.
Okay. So hold on. I want to stop you there. See how I got two Taco Bell drinks right next to each other, right? So one was from like half hour ago. This one that I just drank from, it's got to be like a week old.
Nice.
It's terrible, man. I almost, oh gosh.
At least it wasn't like... At least somebody doesn't like dip here, and it was like their dip cup.
Oh no, dude! I've done it. I've done it. It was my own, but
it's fine. It was your own dip. It's fine.
Oh, that's bad.
But yeah, so
it's like so old you don't even know that it's soda.
Why didn't you throw it away?
I should have. Obviously, I had no foresight for this moment.
This is what happens when Chris isn't here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Dragon Age and Tales from the Borderlands.
Yeah, Telltale had a big week because, you know, we've talked about it before that we didn't know when Game of Thrones was going to come out.
Yeah, so
and then we were like, so does that mean Tales from the Borderlands is going to come out? Right. And they come out a week from I guess that's what I played 2 weeks ago was Tales from the Borderlands.
Right.
Because then Game of Thrones came out this week and I played that. What else did I play?
Did you finish the Game of Thrones Telltale?
Yeah, I mean, I finished both of the single chapters because, you know, only episode 1 is out or whatever.
I played maybe an hour to an hour and a half in on the Game of Thrones one because I just didn't have time.
Yeah.
I've been taking care of this damn dog and trying to get some time with the girlfriend in between.
I mean, you know, priorities.
But what did you think of it?
It was awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah. I really like the whole like where they started from because it was like, you know, show and book like where the game starts. I guess it's not really a spoiler because it's known, like if you don't know about the Red Wedding by now.
Right. I mean, we can be very vague. We can just say that's where it starts.
So that's where it starts. And I really liked seeing events that you know how they're going to unfold, but through another person's eyes.
Sure.
And even another step is that I know nothing about this house.
It's not really an adaptation of a story from the books. It's really its own story.
Right.
So like the house exists and you've heard the name in passing if you've read the novels, but there's really no backstory to what they do.
Sure. They're just bannermen of the Starks.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like, that's what you know.
Right.
And you might know the major players like the kids or whatnot. You just might know that they have names and they exist. So I thought that was really cool because it's like they were allowed to keep the canon true And then everything you did as those people, it wasn't going to influence the main story.
Right.
It was just going to show you how things change. And like seeing the people that we know, their likenesses from the show are like so close.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, this is going to be bad. And then I actually beat it. And then I played it with Greg.
Sure.
And I already knew what was going to happen. And I was like, oh God, why'd you do that? Or like, I didn't do that. What's going to happen now? I mean, I think they did it really well.
It's the beauty of Telltale games, is
I'm kind of mad that you didn't finish it.
I'm going to go back and do it.
The ending, just be prepared.
I hope so, man. In Game of Thrones fashion, it better be good.
Oh, it is very George R.R. Martin.
I'm excited. I'm really excited for Tales from the Borderlands as well. So what did you think of that? Because the word is that people that are not huge into the story or in the characters from Borderlands, like they like the looting and they like the gunplay and the multiplayer aspect, but it's like not a huge story driven game for most people.
Right.
But I know that you are into that kind of stuff. So I'm interested to hear your point of view on that.
So, I mean, I've said time and time again how much I enjoy the games, and even from the first one, I think that there was a story and I connected to it regardless if people think there was or wasn't.
Right.
But it's such a change, like you have to put yourself in the mindset that this is Telltale and it's not going to be Borderlands.
Right.
It's not going to be 2K Gearbox. It's going to be Telltale. So all of that shooting, looting, blowing up everything, it is there, but you don't control it as much. Sure. So it's very heavy on the story of the two characters you play as. So I was like, okay, how's this going to work? And then as it unfolded, and then every episode is related to a character or something. So Zero is like kind of the focus of the first episode.
That's cool.
So you see him a lot. And I thought that was awesome. Just because like the interaction that the Zero character has with the characters you play as and things that unfold, like it's really cool. I think they did a really good job. But it's technically a true sequel to Borderlands 2.
Oh, that's interesting then.
Because they mention things that happened in 2. I mean, is it still spoilers now? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe for some people it might be, but
because you're not spoiling pre-sequel because that happens between 1 and 2.
Sure.
So 2 has been out 2 years now.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah. So spoilers, you kill Handsome Jack.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that people will understand.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I didn't, in case. So they mentioned the first guy you play as, his name is Rhys, Rhys.
Witherspoon?
No, it's a dude. But he works for Hyperion and he has a robot arm.
That's cool.
And he mentions that now that Jack is dead, he could be up for a promotion. So like there's that
Handsome Rhys.
There's this huge dynamic of he is
maybe it's Handsome Rhys.
No, just stop.
He's got a
I thought I was the one with the bad jokes. It's funny how you're just petting Indiana like you're like an evil man, like you're Dr. Evil. Man. But I thought they did it really well. The characters they made I thought were really cool. Seeing a lot of the people from the 2 games is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not even. There might not be people from Borderlands 1 yet, but there was a guy from 2. He was in the DLC of the Scarlet's Booty Bay.
Never played it.
He was like the guy who ran the town of Oasis, but everyone's dead but him.
Sure.
So he's like delusional. Like he makes up characters and they're like pinned up on the wall and he like talks through a megaphone through them in their voice.
Yes. I do remember him.
So he's in this. So
he's fantastic character.
It's cool to see him. It's cool to see like the story of how the 2 characters you play as meet and everything. Yeah. Like I think it's done really well. The Game of Thrones game definitely episode to episode was better. But I think it's just because it's Game of Thrones and we know how things happen and end, sure. Whereas I feel like every episode of Game of Thrones is going to have that cliffhanger, oh my God moment, whereas Borderlands is building up to things.
True. And it's also 2 very, very different themes.
Sure.
Just
they're both great though, for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things and I can't say that I was surprised that either of them was getting good reviews, and
sure.
And the word was positive for either or both because it is Telltale and they have done some great things in the past. So
yeah, I mean,
awesome. I'm excited to play them.
Based on just the first episode for those 2, I'm excited to see what their next thing is going to be. Like after those 2 games are done.
Sure.
Because then it proves that not only could they take something as popular as the Walking Dead franchise, something that is popular to other people, as in The Wolf Among Us and the Fable comics.
Right.
And then Borderlands, which is a huge video game franchise, and then Game of Thrones, which is a huge book. And like, it's interesting the ability that they have.
Yeah. I mean, they're great at adapting the source material, and it's a tough thing to do, but I would be interested to see what they can write on their own now that they have had this success with these 4 games, and they've proven that they can make quality video games, and they are awesome at storytelling.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if they can achieve that same level of quality with something that they've written on their own. It would make sense for their time to same style of storytelling and, like quick time events, but a story that they made. Right. No limitations from, is this canon? Can we go outside the source material here? Right. And I think that, the stories that they tell are already in a way, Tales from the Borderlands. I mean, I guess all of them, even The Walking Dead. I guess The Walking Dead is probably the farthest away from the source material. It's just in the world, and they just take they make their own characters within this setting, but everything else is fairly close to the source material. Well, in one way or another.
I mean, Borderlands, there's no mention of these 2 characters anywhere that I could find in the other games. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then Game of Thrones, like you're saying, the house is known, but that's pretty much it. So they can write the history however they want.
Sure.
So I think that they should take a chance, and this is true Telltale, and this is our own story.
Create their own thing.
Sure. I mean, it might be scary to them because they do things so well, but I think it's now time for them to take a chance. Yeah. Like, I think they've proven themselves.
Yeah. I'd be interested to give it a shot.
And I'm sure people who loved their games are going to buy at least the first episode just to see it.
Right. I mean, they do have that going for them, and that's part of the reasons why they probably are on the map at all, is because they take these big franchises that people do care about and adapt them into something that is original, that that they make on their own, and that allows people to come and become fans. So now that they have that audience and they have that faith from people that they're going to make good stuff, I think it is time for them to go in and make something new. But I'm sure that they can't stop. Like, they already basically have said that Fables will continue, or Wolf Among Us will continue in one way or another. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that The Walking Dead will keep going after it's done. I'm sure there'll be a season 3.
Sure.
And
how could you not?
So it's hard for me now that they have 4 projects at some point are going to be running concurrently. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see if they're going to even have time to start making something new.
Sure. It would really be interesting to see if they continue the episodic thing. Like, could they grow in so much fame and fortune, I guess, that they could be a bigger studio and produce straight to retail, you know? I mean, but that works for them. So it's hard to say. I mean, I think the future is bright for them.
I agree. And I am excited to see what comes out of it. All right, let's
have you played anything important?
I've still been playing Dragon Age.
So what are you at now, like 100 hours?
I'm like 44 hours in.
Okay.
So I haven't been able to play as much this week because of new dog.
Yep.
And, just life. But I have played the past couple of days. I had a chance to play. And I'm about 45 hours in. I'm still enjoying it. I don't have
in the hinterlands.
No. No, I'm not in the hinterlands. But I still feel like I have a ton of the game left to explore and lots of stuff to do. I can't imagine that I'm maybe halfway through the story missions, the big story missions. There's not a whole lot of them.
Sure.
But I'm about halfway through, and there's still a ton of stuff to do. But I feel like I'm almost at level cap. I'm level 18. I don't know what level cap is. I know that level 20 is a silver trophy on PlayStation to hit level 20, and there's no hit level 30 gold trophy.
Right.
So I wonder if it's like a soft level cap and everything is slower leveling up after that.
Yeah, you still earn
like it wasn't in Skyrim where it was like you had a level 30 soft level cap and it just took you longer to level up after that. I'm not sure how it works, but yeah, I've been enjoying that. Oh, look, it's my alarm for the Input Delay podcast. I've also been playing Valiant Hearts.
Awesome.
Which is the World War I game.
Yep.
It's like a side scroller puzzle adventure game about 2 soldiers, a nurse, a
dog, German
soldier, and a dog. Yes. In World War I, going through France and Germany in the trenches and through. it's fantastic so far. Like the score of the game is just beautiful to listen to.
Sure.
And it's very emotional. And I know that I'm going to weep at some point in this game because at least the dog will perish and that will be sad enough. But it's a fantastic game. It's really, really good. And it's not really like anything that I've played in a long time, and it's hard to compare it to something else, but it's been awesome.
I've seen gameplay of it. It looks really good.
It's really cool.
Not to ruin anything we're going to talk about, but I think it won some awards on Friday.
It may have. Hint, hint of things to come. This week there was a ton of gaming news, and maybe it's not even because it was a 2-week gap since the last time we talked about gaming news. It's because the PlayStation Experience was today and yesterday, and the video game awards were this week as well. And there have been a bunch of announcements and lots of news coming out of both of those places. So a whole bunch of stuff on the gaming front, and we will get to that. This is going to be a primarily gaming show. No racks or facts or whatever we did from the last podcast with the questions, just because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll bring it back when Chris or when Planamento
That's a bummer.
come back on.
Because I could probably make up 10 questions to ask you.
You think that it's easy and it's not. But no, there was a really cool event that happened outside the world of gaming this week that I wanted to touch on. And it's in science.
Oh, snaps.
Yeah, it's science.
For science!
I've actually been on a really big sort of science kick lately. I've been listening to Star Talk, the Neil deGrasse Tyson podcast, and I watched the documentary on the Higgs boson.
Okay.
It's called Particle Fever. It's on Netflix. It's about CERN and the people there that built the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
And them trying to find the Higgs boson and prove that theory was correct, and them looking into particle physics. And it's really interesting, though I understand like 2% of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been sort of into more, like I would say like higher level thinking. I guess all the video games have sort of fried my brain, and I want to be a little bit more intellectual since it's been 4 years since I've been in college. So, but there was a pretty big event that happened this week in the science world. And of course, I'm talking about the Orion spacecraft test flight. So this will be a couple of minutes. If you don't care about science, shut up and listen, because it's fucking cool and it's happening in our lifetime. So I don't care.
You might learn something.
You might. It's hella interesting. So it'll be a while, but at the end, I have a question for you. So I'll get through this and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
So on Friday, NASA launched the first test flight of the Orion spacecraft. So it went up, it flew for like 4.5 hours, and then it came down at their target where they wanted it to come down in the Pacific Ocean. It didn't crash and burn. That's where they wanted it to go.
That's a good thing.
Good
job, guys.
Win. So if you don't know what Orion is a multi-purpose crew vehicle designed for space travel beyond what is called low Earth orbit, or LEO. So low Earth orbit is 1,200 miles from Earth. So like the international,
pretty far.
Yeah, it's far. Small in the scope of the universe, but the International Space Station, the Hubble telescope, and all of the satellites and stuff that we have orbiting the Earth, they're all within this LEO, this low Earth orbit. And until now, the only manned thing that we've done, or even the only thing that we've done aside from like Voyager and the other things that we're sending out into the solar system to take pictures of the galaxies and the other planets, the only manned thing that we've done is the Apollo space missions, the one that took us to the moon. And they're the only ones that have left that low Earth orbit. So now with Orion, they've created a sort of successor to the Apollo missions that is going to take human beings further into space than we've ever gone before, which is really interesting. So right now, on Friday, they launched the Orion. It was successful, but of course it was a test. They just wanted to make sure that things would work, that their launch was correct.
Was the test manned, or was it just, okay.
There was no one in there.
So it could handle like the launch and the travel, and then the re-admittance to orbit. I don't know what they call that. The descension. I don't know. Coming home.
But as far as Orion is concerned in the future, like what they're going to actually do with it, right now there's 3 possible destinations for Orion to take these people. And the first one is a return to the moon, where it's possible that we could do a couple of different things on the moon. Basically, some people think that it would be a great opportunity to train astronauts on the moon for longer, more complex space missions. So you take them up to the moon and you train them on, space and the travel, and then you bring them back home, and, then they're prepared for longer, more complex missions. You could do more tests and research to, again, help you prepare. And then it's also possible that we create a semi-permanent or permanent residence on the moon for people to actually live. And it means that a possibility of a lunar colony could actually happen. Now, it's probably not possible in our lifetime.
Sure.
But it is a possibility, and we could see the beginnings of the mission by the time that, we're fading away.
Sure.
But that's really cool to think of people actually building stuff on the moon and setting up camp there and getting ready as a sort of a launching point out into the solar system and in a little bit deeper space. And by deeper space, I don't really mean deep space. I mean space that's farther away than the moon, which previously is something that we haven't done.
It's like half distance then, because if you're launching from the moon, you don't have to worry about leaving Earth's atmosphere and orbit and all that.
True.
You're already there essentially.
Right. I would imagine that the logistics of the launch are going to be quite different because you're doing it from the moon. You're not doing it from, Earth's gravity, going through the atmosphere and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But it would create whole new problems, like where, all the supplies and easy stuff that you need that you can just sort of head out to the Getty Mart to grab,
I don't think you can get rocket fuel at the Getty Mart, but okay.
But I mean, it's something that I don't know. I can't imagine the logistics that would have to go into something like that, but it is possible. And I'm sure that there are a bunch of things that are made easier from having this sort of moon colony as a launching point. But that's one of the possibilities, is that Orion, these missions are going to take us back up to the moon. And we'll do any number of things there, like we talked about. Possibility number 2 is to explore an asteroid in lunar orbit, which is going to cost significantly less than trying to set anything up on the moon. And that's going to give us an opportunity to develop new technologies on a smaller scale. So not new technologies from the asteroid. They would probably, for research purposes, they would go off and they would take samples and they would try to identify any new bacteria or any new minerals, or just see the makeup of that particular asteroid. But basically, it's almost like the journey is the goal. You know what I mean? Like, the goal is not really to get there, but it's almost like the technology that they would have to develop and create in order to get us to that asteroid and for us to be able to land on that is really what we're looking for. Because if we can successfully put people up from the spacecraft and have people land on this asteroid in lunar orbit, then that's a great test for further space exploration. And it's considerably less expensive. It's like $2.9 billion or something is the funding.
No big deal.
Which is cheap. I mean, the LHC, which is the collider, was like $7.5 billion of funding.
Sure.
Just to be able to smash some particles together on Earth. And this is people going up in a spacecraft and landing on a fucking asteroid, and that costs half. You know what I mean? That's craziness, and would be significantly cheaper. So that's probably the most realistic scenario with what's going to happen with Orion in the future, is they're going to send him out to this asteroid because it costs less and there's a lot of potential gain there as far as technological advancement.
So you're telling me that the movie Armageddon was not based on real events?
No, but that has been something that's been going on in the science world as well, is that people are really starting to think that we're going to need to prepare for the possibility that there is asteroids that are going to come and do significant damage to the Earth.
Bruce Willis, get ready.
So that's right. Prepare yourselves. But one of the technological advancements that's possible is solar electric propulsion, which is scientifically hella confusing, and I have no idea how it works. But basically, it's just a more efficient way to propel our spacecraft, and it could be helpful in like putting all of our supplies on an unmanned craft and using this solar electric propulsion to send all of our supplies ahead of us, because it's it's like very low energy.
Sure.
But it's very efficient. So you could, if we're going to Mars, which spoilers is the next possibility, then we could use this solar electric propulsion to send all our supplies there first, and then getting the people there, we can use something else, and it would just be a more efficient process. So possibility 3, which is the one that most people are excited about, and that's what everyone is talking about at the moment, is the idea that Orion is going to be used as part of a manned mission to Mars, where what it's going to do is it's going to be able to deliver these crew members out past the low Earth orbit into another spacecraft that is actually utilized for interplanetary travel.
Sure.
So it would just be part of the system to take us to Mars. It wouldn't actually be the craft that takes us there. It would just take us out of Earth's orbit onto a different kind of craft that is more designed for space travel rather than trying to leave our atmosphere.
Right. And that's the most exciting thing, because launching in space is way different from on the planet,
right.
You know? Yeah.
So it's super exciting to think of all the possibilities. And it's just really interesting to think about this stuff. And I feel like it's something that we don't always think about on a grand scale. You know what I mean? The things that we're possible of. I feel like science has sort of fell out of the public consciousness after the Apollo missions and after, the actual manned trips to the moon were ended.
Sure.
I feel like people just don't care anymore.
And there's conspiracy. Did we even really land there?
Right. It's just a shame. And I don't really have the mind to understand the way that these things work, but I do think that it's super interesting. So nonetheless, no manned missions are planned for the Orion until 2021. They still have lots of tests and lots of things to do. So it's not going to be for another 7 years.
Still not that far, though. I mean, true. 2015 is right around the corner.
This is in like a month.
Yeah.
In like 3 weeks.
Hence right around the corner.
Craziness. So we're not going to be setting foot on Mars for a long time, if that's even the case. So even if they put people in the Orion and they start doing stuff, it'll probably be like a trip around the moon, or maybe they'll do the asteroid thing in the next 15 years or so. Their technology is rapidly increasing, so who knows? It could be sooner than that.
They did make the Tempur-Pedic bed, just saying.
Well, that's the really cool stuff, is that, the space program really helped the advancement of technology in the past 50 years.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's
hands down
one of the reasons that we're so technologically advanced now. And you think of something as simple as like the radio wave was invented in, I think, like 1880 or 1890. And it wasn't really made for any purpose other than, it wasn't utilized for any purpose after its discovery. It was just like, these things exist. And then all of a sudden, it's utilized for a different purpose. So we might not even know what we're going to be doing with the technology that we use for these missions. Sure. But it's going to turn into something extremely exciting down the line. But the complexity and logistics of the mission to Mars, or even the mission to the moon, or the asteroids, are crazy. But the Mars one specifically is what I want to ask you about. And the general consensus of the mission is, if we spend these billions of dollars and we use all this technology to get us to Mars and to get these people out there, the general idea is they're not coming back. Right. It's a one-way trip. They're the first people on Mars. And
because there's no colony, there's no way to come back. You'd have to like build a space station or whatever to come back.
Right. You would have. I can't even imagine how difficult it would be. Like, it's insane to think of getting them there, but think about how difficult it would be to get them back.
Sure.
So my question to you is, if you were going to be the first human being to set foot on another planet, to set foot on Mars, granted, probably with, a dozen or 20 or 30 other people, we'll see what it turns out to be at that point. Would you go knowing that you wouldn't be able to come back to Earth?
I mean, right now,
heavy, right?
I mean, my first thought is, what about video games? You could only play against people there because the Wi-Fi is not going to send like all the way to Earth.
No interplanetary wide web, you know?
So that would suck. I mean, there's no Google now.
I'm sure that Google would have their hands in that somewhere.
Google would launch like a probe so you could still Google stuff. You could only Google what's on Mars, though.
Official search engine of Mars.
Yeah. I think it would be really interesting. That's for sure. I mean, at 27, like if I was leaving tomorrow, I'd probably say no.
Well, that's probably going to be the age of the people that are going out, because they are physically the most ready to do that. You know what I mean? Maybe, I guess 30s, probably mid 30s.
Like if I was
through all the training and
like
knowledge,
50, and I was like a scientist, and my wife was a scientist, and you know what I'm saying?
I've forgotten which drink is which. One has ice. There it is. Okay. Science.
NASA, we need you to discover drinks. Honestly, I would much rather live on the moon. Like if I had to be in one of the Orion missions and not come back, I think I would prefer the moon as to Mars.
Sure.
Because I feel like if people were going to go back to Earth, it would be from the moon first. Got to have that backup plan. I don't know. I feel like living on the moon would be so cool.
Right.
Mars, we don't really know what's on Mars yet. So I'm not ready to take that leap.
But that would just be...
I'm not a scientist, Aaron. I don't know.
I know, but I mean, that's the thing is it's like, it is in essence a very long suicide mission.
Sure.
You know, that you're going to die on Mars. You're not coming back.
Right.
And it's just, you know, if you think about it that way, then yeah, that's hella scary. You know what I mean? But if you could be a normal person and volunteer, maybe you have to go through 4 or 5 years of training or whatever before you go there. But if you're just a normal guy that's like, hell yeah, I'll go to Mars. You know what I mean?
I feel like you would have to have a point, though.
Like the point is that you are Nick DeFeo. You are Nicholas DeFeo, one of the first human beings to leave the Earth and reside on another planet. You will die but see, citizen of Mars. You know,
from my understanding of NASA's programs, though, is that they're not going to send civilians somewhere to be the first.
No, well, another possibility is that it will be a private company because it is altogether possible that NASA will lose funding for these projects by the time that they would actually be able to carry them out. And then the people that are going to follow through are the private corporations funded by people that do give a shit and not under the whim of the government that has wars to fight. You know, who gives a shit about the furthering of humankind when I can go fucking kill someone for something that's in the ground? You know what I mean?
Right.
Who gives a shit about that? So like, that's probably what's going to happen unless something fairly significant changes within world politics. Because if we can come together and pool our resources, then that's, you know, going to be a much, not necessarily easy, but it would be easier than it is.
I still feel like that even if it was privatized, that company would have a job for every single person that's going there. So it's like, then I would have to think, well, why would they want me to go? Like, what would be my plan? You know,
so envision the scenario where they open it up and they say 20 civilian people because we need, I mean, you'd probably be an experiment in and of itself because you're just going to,
I'm going to die.
But here's the thing, like, even though they need these people that are extremely intelligent to be able to run the machines and to be able to do these calibrations and do this thing, like, do you really think there's not going to need to be somebody that sweeps up the fucking red dust off of the ground?
Oh, so what you tell me is I'm going to be Mars first January? Fuck you, Harvey.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's always going to need to be some sort of blue collar community.
So what you're saying is GameStop's going to have a store there and I'm going to need to run it.
But I mean, there's going to be a place for everybody. See, I mean, if they're setting up a permanent colony there and these people are going to live their lives, then you might think that there's going to need to be a place for normal, intelligent people as well.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to just send some Joe Schmo up there and he does nothing but live there. Like, he's going to have a purpose there as well. So I would have to know the purpose. Like, you're going to sweep up after everybody. I'd be like, fuck you, I'm not going to Mars.
You're looking at the really small picture, though.
No, that's the huge picture about it. No. I'm going to die on this planet. I need to know what my job's going to be. But that's the thing.
Like, that's not the big picture. That's day to day. That's like, when I wake up, am I going to have to shower in space? Like, who cares? You know, who cares about the day-to-day life of Mars?
I care.
Well, you become more than yourself. You're becoming an idol. You're becoming this juggernaut of history.
No, I doubt that.
Yes, you are. You're one of the first people that are on another planet to colonize.
But they're going to be like, okay, first people on Mars. Who's the first person they're going to list? Like a fucking scientist or an engineer. And they'd be like, by the way, this asshole Nick DeFeo, he was there too.
He's sweeping up the floors.
Sweeping up the fucking red dust. I mean, it's an interesting idea, but I would much rather live on the moon than Mars.
That'd be cool too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Hella interesting.
But I'd have to have internet.
That's the real kicker.
I need to be able to play and be like, you just got owned from the moon.
Well, I mean, there has to be some sort of network for communication, at least back from Mars to either a space station or back to Earth to be able to...
We'd have our own leaderboards.
You know, to pass information back and forth to get all this research back to Earth. So maybe there is a way... If we can create a craft that's going to be taking us as far as Mars, you know, the 9-month trip or whatever it takes for us to get there.
That's insane.
Then, you know, maybe it's possible that we can have internet there.
Here's what they do. They get 10 men and 10 women. These 10 men impregnate 10 women. And by the time they get to Mars, they have another 10.
That's your job. That's what you have to do.
Sign me up.
If you're going to repopulate
Sign me up.
Humankind on Mars, you're going to have babies.
Yeah. Because by the time we'd get there, they'd be born.
Well, you're not fucking on the spacecraft.
Why not? You said it's a 9-month trip.
Because I'm pretty sure that they don't know if it works in space. Not like your dick. They don't know, like, I mean, honestly, if we're thinking about that, who knows? Does your dick work in space? Google. All right.
There's no gravity, so the whole women on top is out the window.
That's not what I'm talking about. They just literally, they don't know biologically if you're able to inseminate, a woman. I was going to say a thing.
There's still propulsion.
You don't know if pregnancy is even possible in space, without gravity.
Can you shoot a gun in space?
Can you shoot a gun in space? Yeah. I don't think that you can.
Why couldn't you?
Well, I guess you could if you're in a spacecraft that has
artificial gravity.
Not gravity. It's the oxygen that's required for the combustion.
Sure.
Within the gun to be able to actually, make the explosion that fires the bullet.
I think you can have sex. In this spaceship.
Wait, what? Hold on. I want to back up for a second. We were talking about sex, and all of a sudden, you're worried about firing a gun. I want to know how you're coercing these women into having sex with you.
It's about the propulsion.
Sure.
Your body still projects your swimmers,
but
gravity has nothing to do with it.
It's not the projection. We're not worrying about like your skeet shot in the fucking spacecraft. We're worrying about like the sperm moving through the organs in the woman's body to be able to fertilize the egg. You know what I mean? That's what you're worried about. Is that possible without?
It should be easier because they don't have to battle against gravity.
I don't think that that's what the sperm are worried about when they're trying to get to the egg. I don't think it's like constant, fight for gravity.
I mean, if the host is alive, that's going to be alive. I think it's possible.
They don't know.
Sign me up for that, NASA. I'll be willing to test that.
You'll be the experiment to see if you can impregnate someone in space. I'm sure that if they did do that, then it's like science. You really think that you would have people go up and bang in space, or would you have like artificial insemination?
No, you would have to bang in space. Come on.
Really?
You'd have to do both.
They would probably.
There would be a control group and then a non-controlled group.
Sure.
Controlled is artificial insemination to see if you can still get pregnant, and then the uncontrolled is like, does it work? Aaron, we got to ask these important questions. People need to know.
We really do. Oh man,
we may not be scientists, but we think about things.
Sex, and shooting guns in space. That's why humankind is never going to make it to another planet.
We'll be fine.
Oh man. Okay, let's get away from science though. Extra interesting, but people that don't care about science, now's the time that you can come back. So if you're just rejoining us because you've skipped and I've somehow time coded the episode, you missed a really interesting discussion about spacecraft and low Earth orbit and guns firing, as well as having sex in space and whether or not Nick is going to repopulate Mars. So
I would take that claim to fame.
You missed a lot.
Nick DeFeo populates Mars.
Hey, tell me about I Am Bread and what the hell this is.
So I always peruse Steam just to see what's there.
Good perusal.
And this game just pops up. I Am Bread. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So I look at it. It's like a Quarp game. You remember Quarp where you made like the guy run and you could Quap? Okay. Yeah. So you only have those buttons that control them.
Okay.
Think of that, but those buttons are the four corners of the bread.
Okay.
So the story of the game is you're the slice of bread and you want to get toasted. Not like not in a drug sense, but literally
fucking joint
golden brown
bread.
And what's funny is the game is told through the narrative of the guys whose house this piece of bread lives in is going to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is talking about the guy, his patient has these crazy thoughts about this piece of bread being alive, and then you play as a piece of bread. But so you start in the kitchen and you're on a table and you have to get toasted.
Sure, yeah.
And you actually like fight your way out of the bread loaf. It's hilarious. And it's so much easier to play with the controller because your corners are the four shoulder buttons.
Did you play this game?
Yeah, I bought it. It was $8.50. I didn't care. Early access.
Well, this is the reason, because I had no idea what this was. Oh gosh,
goodness,
man. I had no idea. Excuse me. I had no idea what this was. You just randomly put it in our group text. You were just like, I am bread, period. In the middle of nowhere. And I was like, he's on drugs.
But yeah, so when you play the first level, you have to get to the toaster. There's actually a toaster. And to get there, you have to traverse the environment. And because you can hit the buttons, you have essentially, you can grip with I don't know how it happens, but whatever. This piece of bread can grip on things, and you have a grip gauge. And when it drops, you have no more grip. And you also have a gauge of edibility, and you start at 100%. And obviously, as you hit the ground or hit water or all that, you lose, how tasty you're going to be. And at the end of it, you get a score.
That's so weird.
And so not only was the journey to get to the toaster crazy, like mashing buttons and using like swinging motions to propel myself across the wall and stuff, but to get into the toaster was another journey in itself. Cause it's not like I could just lay the bread flat on the toaster and it count. I had to be in the toaster, dude. Like it was. So then I tried to play the second level
simulator,
and you're like, it was almost exactly like that, but you're a piece of bread and you have to move yourself. So then the second one,
exactly like Surgeon Simulator.
So
except you're a piece of bread.
Well, it's the idea that you handle, individual components with different buttons. Mm-hmm. So then the second one, you're in the living room and it says get toasted. And there's like a kerosene. Well, there's like old wall heaters where you could like see the like filament turn red because it's heating up.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you have to get there, but like to get there, you have to like essentially like leap off the coffee table and like go all like the game is ridiculous. I was talking to my buddy while I was playing it and he was like watching people like play it while I was playing it. He was like, this looks like the dumbest game ever. And I'm just like, oh my God, I fell in water. Or now, like, oh, there's ants. Like, oh,
I mean, do you have a voice?
He doesn't. The piece of bread doesn't talk.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, because that would be ridiculous. Oh, man.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I love it.
Oh, goodness. Check it out. I am bread. Yeah, have it.
The funny thing is, though, is when I first read it, I was like, I wonder if Miner's going to buy this game.
I bet he will. It's like his life.
Then I had to, bread doesn't make you fat.
Oh, man. Eventually, there's just going to be this collection of like top 10 games to play while tripping. And that's like, it's got to be up near the top.
It's like number 2.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to game news. And no more bread.
What?
I got a couple of things here and we'll talk about it. I actually got a bunch of stuff to go through and I think we're going to run long today. So we'll go through all these as quick as possible.
Okay.
So news before we get to Game Awards. Black Friday was last week and it said that the Xbox One has won the day, outselling PS4 by a significant margin. I think that the total like market share of Xbox One on Black Friday was like 53% and PS4 was like 31%. So a considerable amount of Xbox One sold in relation to PS4s. A lot of that is probably because I would imagine that there's some hangover where it's like, I already have a PS4. Now's the time to go grab an Xbox One.
Sure.
Because I don't know if just on any other day, the Xbox One is beating out the PS4 because of the price drop. Maybe it's a time thing. Maybe it's over the past month. Xbox One has been outselling the PS4, but I think that it's been closer. So we'll see. But yeah, so cool for the Xbox One. People going out and grabbing it. I'm that statistic.
I already own one
because I went and grabbed one.
But I'm not going to buy a PS4.
You're going to be sorry after all the stuff we talk about during the PlayStation experience.
I already know what you're going to say. I read the show notes.
I know you did. Man, this is going to be weird. I'm just like springing all this shit on you guys. Now you actually read the fucking thing. News number 2. Not really a top 5 segment, but I don't have anything numbered. Hearthstone's Goblin vs. Gnomes expansion is coming on December 8th.
Yes.
Tomorrow. It is tomorrow or today if you're listening to this, or a long time ago if it's a while from now.
Well,
maybe you already have like 2 more expansions. Maybe I fucking am jealous as shit of you, listener, listening to this podcast 2 years from now with all your Hearthstone content, all your fucking cards and legendaries and new single player expansions. Fuck you for listening to this.
Calm down.
Love you.
We would have that too.
Then, not now. They're listening to this now and they have all of it. Does that not make you upset?
So not now, but then now.
Someone right now is listening to this and it's like 2025 and they're on Mars and they're listening to this podcast.
Mind blown. On Mars in 2025 playing Hearthstone.
Oh, man.
No, there would be no internet, so fuck them.
Yeah, right. It's, got to be always online. That's the reason why it's just impossible scenario because there's no internet. Also, Banner Saga 2 announced. less awesome news. I love the Banner Saga is a really fucking cool game. So it's exciting to see what that'll be. No release date. It's just,
you know what I'm surprised that we haven't talked about?
Hearthstone.
What came out December 5th?
What did come out December 5th?
Dungeon Defenders 2.
Did it come out this week? Yeah. I saw some news about it, like they were talking to the developer, but I didn't
early access.
Really?
Yeah,
that's really weird.
You can buy it. I might buy the collectors for $40.
I really love Dungeon Defenders 1.
The art looks so grown up now, like they're not little kids anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was the story in Dungeon Defenders 1 is they were the kids of the kingdom while all their parents went away to do something else, and then they had to protect the castle. So maybe now they're all grown up. Or is this the art style completely different?
No, the art style is the same. They just look like grown-ups.
Oh, well, that's cool.
But yeah, so shocked.
I didn't know. I didn't know that it had a release date. Yeah. I guess technically it doesn't since it's early access, but that's fucking cool. I'm going to have to pick that up.
It's like $20 and then there's a collector's for $40.
I shall be playing that. Fucking love the first one.
Yeah. Good shit.
A couple more things that I forgot to put on the notes. Dark Souls 2 is coming to next-gen consoles on April 7th.
Sins of the First Scholar.
Which is all of the DLC, as well as the original game. Coming to next-gen consoles, it's going to have updated graphics. It's going to have all the DLC content. It's going to look better. It's going to play better. It's going to be the same shit, and I'm not going to care because Bloodborne is out.
I'm going to buy it.
Really? Yeah. I might. I would have been 300 times as excited if it was Dark Souls 1. I would have been way more excited if it was the first Dark Souls coming to next gen.
But the only thing that they would have done then is it would be a remake. There was no DLC for the game, you know.
There was Artorias.
Oh, okay, yeah. I never played that one.
Yeah, Prepare to Die edition was the Artorias DLC.
Yeah, I saw the fight
with him and the Guardian and Manus. That was awesome. That DLC was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have preferred if this was a Dark Souls bundle and it was Dark Souls 1 and 2 coming to next gen. That would have been awesome. But I think I'm going to be absorbed in Bloodborne. Who knows? Maybe by April, I'm going to be done with Bloodborne and want some more Souls and get back to it.
You probably won't.
Probably won't because I'm excited for Bloodborne.
Nah.
Also, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5, which is the remastered, updated versions of 1 and 2, are coming to next gen as well. So in preparation for Kingdom Hearts 3, eventually, there's no release date. It's not technically confirmed, but 1.5, 2.5, supposed to be coming to next gen.
Like 2.5 just came out on PS3. Like, why wouldn't you release it at the same time then?
I don't know. Again, because they are going to want to promote the new game.
Sure.
So just like they're going to do, I don't know, what other
is
bundles?
3 next gen only?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's they'll probably release that, you know, a couple months beforehand or like a year beforehand to keep the...
I would really like to see Persona 4 Golden on PS4 before Persona 5, but I know that won't happen. Persona 4 Golden. It's good enough on Vita, so I need to get back to that, by the way. I played like 3 hours of it a couple weeks ago and just haven't had time to get back to it. It's such a great game. Also, Assassin's Creed Victory was leaked this week. That game is coming out next year. Leaked, I say in quotation marks, because fucking Ubisoft does this every year with Assassin's Creed games where they accidentally let out the information. Like Black Flag was like that, and Unity was like that, and Rogue. Or it was like a months ahead of their official announcement. Sure. People were like, "Oh, there's going to be 2 different games, and this one's called Rogue." And they were like, "This isn't it's always their fucking release. They just want to say that it's not." But yeah, Assassin's Creed Victory coming out next year, set in Victorian era London, which is really cool. So like Jack the Ripper. Right. Time period.
That's
really cool.
Interesting.
Because, you know, there's not the fucking Order and Bloodborne, which are already sort of Victorian, sort of steampunky. And I would imagine it's going to be a very similar setting. So
would you say 1887 is Victorian?
No. The Order what is it? Is it 1887?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember now. God, that game. Surprised it's ever going to come out. But apparently what they showed at the PlayStation Experience was really cool, and people are excited now. But I think that the overall tone and just the atmosphere of the game is going to align. It's like the same way it aligns with Bloodborne, even though I'm sure that that's not the same time period.
Sure.
I mean, we're only talking a couple 100 years difference. So
yeah, because nothing could happen in a couple 100 years.
No. I think our timeline is way off, but we'll just pretend it didn't happen. Anyway, we'll continue.
I mean, I did play a little bit of Unity, and like
that is the same time period, right? Are we fucking out of our minds?
What do you mean?
Like, are we showing how stupid we are at history right now?
Victorian, like Elizabethan era, I don't think is 1800s. I think it's like 1750.
I don't think so. Because when was Jack the Ripper? After the American Revolution. We're talking about 1800s here.
Oh, whatever.
Anyway, well, we're dumb. Let's pretend that we know.
History is not my forte, okay?
Yeah, history is super interesting, but I can't remember anything. We just proved that we're dumb.
Too many drugs.
Man, we should have just stopped while we were ahead when we were talking about all the cool science shit, because now everyone thinks we're dumb. Everyone is correct, by the way.
Fuck you people.
You think that. Is that it for that kind of news? I think so. Okay, so now we're moving on from general news to what happened at the PlayStation experience and a little bit of crossover from the Video Game Awards, because some of the stuff was there too.
1819 to 1901.
There you go. So it's the same time period.
That's the range of Queen Victoria.
Yes, so it's going to be the same time period as 1886. Sure. Yep. 1884. What fucking year is that game?
It's 1887 or 1886.
I think it's 1886.
Yeah.
I don't know. That game has fallen so far off of my radar. It's not even funny. Also not on my list. They said that The Witcher might have another playable character that's not Geralt.
Yeah, it's the chick, right?
They think that it's his daughter. I don't think it's Yennefer, who's the woman that he's looking for, like his lover, his former lover. I think it's the other girl.
The other girl, yeah, because she has the blood in her.
His like kind of daughter. Anyway, you're not going to be playing as Geralt 100% of the game. Maybe there's like side quests. Who knows? Just some shit was released that it looked like there's going to be someone else you can play as in The Witcher, which is kind of cool. Yep. So the PlayStation experience happened today and yesterday. PlayStation just turned 20 years old. Yep. Which makes me feel old. But I don't know. I'm only 23.
So you're not old then. Shut up.
I'm not that old. You're not that much older than me. So don't act like you're this fucking geezer. We're kids. We're kids. Anyway, PlayStation is 20 years old. Crap. And to celebrate, they had a convention. They announced all kinds of cool shit. Number one, Street Fighter V was announced.
Meh.
And it's probably going to be a timed PS4 and PC exclusive, which might not mean a whole lot to us because we don't really care about fighting games.
Next news.
You don't really care about PlayStation. However, for fighting game fans, Street Fighter is where it's at, and it's only going to be at PlayStation 4 and or PC. But who's going to play fighting games on the PC? I mean, chumps. That's who's going to play.
Yeah, I don't know who would do
chumps.
That. I mean, I'm just less excited because it's Street Fighter. I mean, if they were like...
It looks cool, though.
If they were like Virtua Fighter 6 or something, like I would be bummed out.
It looks really cool. And for me to say that, that probably means that Street Fighter fans say that it looks like shit. Probably. So maybe we'll be excited and they'll hate it. Shovel Knight is coming to PS4, PS3, and Vita.
Saw that
which is awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's an indie game.
I think that won an award.
It may have won an award. Yeah. But extremely popular, very well reviewed, very well received, critically and by fans. I know that Chris loves it. So I'm excited that that company made a lot of money and is able to do this, and hopefully they'll go and make more cool shit. It's awesome.
Sure.
Yeah. An Uncharted 4 gameplay trailer was revealed. Oh my God. It looks fucking great. It looks so good. The problem that I have with
spoilers, he dies at the end.
I'm sure he does. The problems that I had with the other Uncharted games, and I tried to I was talking about this with Carrie the other day, and I was trying to put it into words, but like Drake feels very floaty in Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. Very floaty. Like he feels almost weightless. Like you played Infamous, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Like your main character feels very light because the way like you jump really high, and when you like jump into things, there's not really any impact. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to. It's very hard to describe, and it's hard to come up with a good way of saying it.
He's not grounded. He has almost superhuman abilities.
But it's like a feeling that you have when you're in control of the character, that you don't feel like you make an impact when you're walking, and you don't feel like your character has weight within the world. Mm-hmm. Not like by your actions, but like physical weight within the engine. Like games like, I don't want to say Gears of War because it seems very obvious to say something like Gears of War.
Right, but I know what you're saying though. I mean, they run slower.
Yeah.
They make a lot of noise,
just more realistic in a sense, because you're not like, it's not like arcade runny where you're just running all over the place and you're jumping real high. And Infamous is the worst for that for me. And that's why I feel like I can't connect to that game, because you just feel so fucking floaty all the time. Sunset Overdrive is like that too. But this game, the way that it looks, it seems a lot more similar to the way that movement was in The Last of Us. Now, obviously, there's more jumping around and there's more platforming because it is Uncharted, but the gunplay looks exactly the same as it was in The Last of Us, except more actiony. You're not scrounging around for bullets. You know, it is gunfighting all the time. So that's really cool, because the gun system in Last of Us, like the reticle and everything, was really good. But it does feel like your character has a little bit more weight. And like when you jump and hit a ledge or something, like it actually feels like there's impact there, and that's really cool. And that's just like a weird little thing. But
could it be that it's PS4? Like, could the engine be running differently on that hardware?
I'm sure it's a completely different engine. Yeah. I'm sure that it's totally different. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that it's just because next gen that it has all this weight, because games have had it in the past. Right. You know what I mean? It's not all.
But I mean, like they had to use a new engine for PS4 anyway. So it's like, could that hardware have affected the way that the engine was built? I'm
sure it plays into it. Yeah. Just the capabilities that they have. Another PlayStation exclusive game was shown, and that is footage of No Man's Sky. And No Man's Sky is like a sci-fi adventure game where you pilot a ship and you explore the galaxy or the universe. And the crazy thing about No Man's Sky is that there's supposed to be so many planets for you to be able to hop in your ship and go explore, that when you find a planet out in this universe, that it is extremely likely that you will be the only person in this shared world, this shared network of people,
that's awesome,
to ever hit this planet. Mm-hmm. But it's possible that you'll go and you'll find someone else's planet that they've already been to, because it's all like procedurally generated. So nothing is the same. You go and you find a planet, and this is your planet. And it's possible that one of your friends could find it, but it's like astronomically unlikely.
Because it's not going to be in the same place.
Yeah, because you're probably just going to be in a completely different part of the universe.
Sure.
But it's all a shared network. You know, you're all in the same universe. You're in the same galaxy, but it's just the odds are you'll never be on one of the same planets.
Like you could be spawned at Mercury, and I could be spawned at not planet Pluto.
At like not this solar system, you know. But
I don't know about names for the other ones.
The coolest thing about this game, like they show the gameplay, like the guy hops in the ship on this planet, and obviously the vegetation and the environment of the planet that he's on is crazy. It's beautiful, but he like hops into this spaceship, right? Or he hops into this jet or something
he gets into the vehicle.
He gets into this thing, and then he takes off and he goes up, and it's like no loading screen, no nothing. He just bursts through the atmosphere. Like you see the heat going through the windshield, and he bursts up through the atmosphere into space, and then he just flies off. And then he like goes through this, like he like warps, and he warps into this like fleet of spacecraft that's out in space. And then he goes down into another planet, and there's like no loading screen. He just like takes off and he goes up into space and he warps, and then he goes down to another planet, and it's totally new and it's totally different.
I mean, it sounds awesome.
It looks so cool. And I mean, the big thing is it gonna work? Because it seems extremely ambitious. It seems like this huge undertaking, and who knows if the technology is going to be there. Maybe it's going to be buggy. Maybe it's going to be frame rate issues. But from what was shown, it looks so fucking cool. Like you just hop in your ship and you explore the galaxy, and you go down and you see a world that no one has ever seen, and explore, and
see,
it just looks so fucking cool.
That's the only thing that I have trouble grasping, because we all know that there's limitations to things. Like even computers have limitations, even though that the Minecraft world is infinite. It's not as graphically intensive as say that game would be.
Right.
So things have limitations. So you're telling me that if we both put in 100 hours that we might not see the same planet? Like I can't fathom that.
Right.
You know?
And that's why it's like it seems to be too immense to work.
Sure.
To make sense. But that's what they're saying. You know, who knows if it's going to turn out to be what they say it is. But if it is what they say it is, it's intense. It's like no other game I've ever seen.
Just memory size wise needed. You're going to be in the hundreds of gigs.
I don't know. It depends.
Unless what they do is it's like an always connected network thing, and as you're pulling files from the network the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know how it works.
I mean, that would be interesting. I would probably get a PS4 to play that.
It looks really cool. And unfortunately, I don't think that it's just going to hit mainstream consumers like a big AAA title like Uncharted or Skyrim or Call of Duty or Battlefield or something like that would, or even Dragon Age. I just don't think people are going to be as excited to go out and grab it, which is going to be sad, if this is this huge, ambitious game that's doing things that are totally unique and no one has ever seen. But I hope that it works. I hope it's awesome. I also hope that it's a financial success.
With the power of Reddit, man, I'm sure there's going to be enough people that play something like that.
Well, you're just not going to be... Like, it's never going to be a Grand Theft Auto. It's never going to be a Call of Duty where it's just like normal people are just going to be like, oh, I'm going to go grab this game. And they're not gamers. They don't go out and grab a game because it's good. They go out and grab a game because it's like the thing that they play. It's Grand Theft Auto. It's Call of Duty. That's it. They're just people that are like that, where it's like you buy a system, you play one or two games, you play sports games, you play shooters, and that's it. And that's cool. I mean, to each their own. But I don't think this is one of those games that's going to fit in the everyman's market of games.
I think there's a bigger community of gamers that don't play those games than there are that do.
As I would say, if you're talking about like gamers, people that enjoy video games and play a wide range of them, I would say that among that group, there is a smaller percentage that play like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
However, among general populace, there's a much larger percentage of people that play video games. Right. That play Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty. You can just tell by the sheer sales numbers. You know what I mean?
It's
not like everyone rushed out and bought Spore.
That wasn't that good of a game anyway, though. There are niche games though that sell incredibly well
for the game, for the game that it is. You know what I mean? For the financing that they put into it, they sell extremely well. Like there are niche games that do really well because their expectations were low. They didn't think that it was going to catch on to a larger market than what they planned for. Because I don't think there's like a niche game that spends $300 million, and is hit with financial success. I just don't think it happens. Right. I think you spend $500 on something like Destiny, which is marketed to the masses, and people go out and buy it.
See, like the thing that I think of is the first Dead Island. I remember we were like, it was sold out like everywhere.
And because they made a fucking amazing trailer.
But the thing about it is though, the game came out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? And it was like... I remember working at Avondale and people coming in and be like, what's new? And I'd be like, oh, this Dead Island game came out. Like, it looks crazy. Like, it looks, and then of course it was like bug ridden and all that stuff. But like, I don't know. I'm optimistic in the gaming world. Like, granted, I love Murdered. I loved Kingdoms of Amalur. Like, those two games had poor financial success.
Right.
And it's a shame.
All right.
But I would love to play that game. It sounds awesome.
It looks really cool, and
it reminds me of
it works.
EVE Online. Did you ever play EVE Online?
I know EVE Online, and I've seen gameplay of EVE Online, and I've read things about EVE Online because the community of people that play that game are fucking amazing. Yeah. They're not like the good people. It's just it's amazing the stories that come out of EVE Online. Yeah. If you've never read anything about EVE Online, go online and look up EVE Online crazy shit because that's the only way you can describe the shit happens in that game. Like people spend thousands and thousands of dollars in that game on a big fucking ship to go around the galaxy, and then someone will just come by and blow it up.
Yeah, dude, the game is awesome.
Like thousands of real dollars. Like, oh man.
I remember when I got into playing it and the ship that you start with, and it's just like, oh man, it's depressing when you see other people's ships.
Yeah, like the huge behemoths. Like the scale and the scope of EVE is intense. But No Man's Sky doesn't seem like that. It seems like a very exploration heavy game where it's just like cool to just hop in your ship and explore and find new things. And that sounds really fun. Let's move on from No Man's Sky. And we'll take a trip down memory lane since PlayStation is turning 20. Some classic games are coming out for the PlayStation 4, and my dog's freaking out. Suikoden or Suikoden, don't know how it's pronounced.
I think it's Suikoden.
1 and 2 are both coming to PlayStation 4 as well as the Vita. They are ports, obviously, from the PlayStation 1 game. Maybe they'll be up-res, maybe they'll be slightly better looking, but for the most part, they're just the same game that you played on PlayStation 1. Extremely well-loved JRPGs. They're supposed to be awesome. Suikoden 2 is usually up there on the list of best role-playing games of all time. Definitely one of the best PlayStation games of all time. So I'm really excited to play it because I've never played it before, and that's right up my alley. So I'm excited for that. But the other one is Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, and I saw that. That's really cool because I enjoy the old classic PlayStation 1 JRPGs. I'm excited for them to come back. I'm excited to be able to play them on PS4 and not on my Vita or the PlayStation 3 that I sold however long ago. But the way that they announced Final Fantasy VII coming to PS4 at the PlayStation Experience was so fucking weird because they made this huge, big fucking deal about Final Fantasy VII coming to PS4. And they made it seem like it was this reboot or this remastered version of the game like everyone has been wanting for so long. Yeah. And it's just a port, which is fine because it's still Final Fantasy VII. It's like the PC version that's on Steam right now. And that's cool because I still love the game. I'll still pick it up and play it. But it's not what people were expecting. And it was probably just a PR mistake, the way that they went about it.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, so many people have wanted 7 again. And then the first remake you do, true remake, is 10. Because 10 was an HD remake. It wasn't a port.
I would have to say kinda. Because I think that the first true remake would probably be like 4.
No, I meant from 7
like
on.
A handheld or from
when we hit disc.
Yeah.
I meant like people that were fans of 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever.
Like a console version remastered.
Right. The first remake was 10.
Sure.
And it's like, people have been dying for 7, although I don't understand why, because I don't care for 7.
Sure.
But I know as gamers, they would love to have that. And it's like, hey, we're going to do it. But it's not a remake. We're just going to give it to you.
It's really weird. It's just the way that they went about it. They were like, Final Fantasy VII coming to PlayStation 4. It's the one that you play on Steam right now. It's just really weird, but it's still cool. I'm still excited to play Final Fantasy. Also, last thing, and then we'll wrap it up because it's been a long one. But some cool shit that happened in game world, but some not cool shit that's happening in the game world right now is down in Australia.
Yeah.
Fucking Aussies. You hear about this?
Yeah.
So some retailers in Australia have pulled their stock of GTA 5 off of store shelves due to the game's violent nature, which you can't really debate. The game is violent as shit. There's some crazy, terrible things that happen in that game. You can't debate that. What you can debate is what they've done, which is take the games off the shelves because of said violent nature. Now, this is not a new thing for Australia because Australia is notorious about being very strict with violence in video games.
Yeah.
That there are a lot of things that don't pass through their rating system. Like we just talked about Dead Island. Dead Island couldn't come out in Australia. You know what I mean? They had to change all kinds of shit around to be able to make that game.
Well, their collector's edition stuff couldn't even come out.
Yeah. That was the bus with the headless boob sculpture. What the fuck is? I mean, come on, why do that anyway?
Hey, the one in the Americas had a U.S. flag rating suit, and then there was a Union Jack one for the UK. It was hilarious.
So we know that in the past Australia has done this before, but just recently Australia passed a ruling that allowed games to be given the R18 plus rating, which is for adults only. So games. Like specifically this game, specifically Grand Theft Auto 5 or any other Grand Theft Auto titles, I would imagine, are going to fit into this category of 18 and over only adults. Which
ESRB has a rating for that. It's AO. It's adults only.
Sure, but M rating is supposed to be the same, where you have to be 17 or older to purchase it.
AO is 18.
Well, that's the thing about adults only is it's not just the age, but adults only cannot be sold in retailers, in most retailers.
Right.
So like GameStop, Target, Walmart, Amazon, like they don't sell those games. So developers won't make adult only games because they know that they have nowhere to sell it. You know what I mean? Like the market might be out there if you make a game that's really good and it has that, AO rating like Manhunt 2 or whatever it fucking was. but nobody's going to sell your game. You know what I mean? So why would you waste all the resources on that? You have to be able to curtail yourself a little bit. And in Australia, that's always been a problem because developers are marketing to the masses of the world, and most places have a mature rating, which allows people to see that extreme content. Not really extreme, but to a point.
Sure.
But Australia has always been strict. Well, now they passed this thing to make it so that they're not as strict, or at least there is a rating in place that these games can fit into so people can play their stuff. I would imagine the gamers down there are pissed every single time that there's this awesome game coming out and they can't play it. Well, they passed this thing. It says, all right, we'll have an adults only thing. And now it's not the rating system that says this game doesn't work. It's the retailers. Mm-hmm. You know, it was Target and somebody else said the same thing. It was, or Kmart. Kmart came out and they were like, because how violent this game is, we're pulling it off the shelves. And then people were hella pissed because you have this rating system to ensure that not just anyone can come in and buy this game. It has to be adults only. So what you're saying is that adults can't even see this. Mm-hmm. You know, like this game is so bad, people that are 18 or over, people that are 30 or 40 years old can't walk in and grab this game. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, censorship is just always blows my mind.
Right.
I mean, what cracks me up, though, is, granted, the game that I'm going to say is not nowhere near on the same M level as GTA, mm-hmm. but pre-sequel is no, you know, bad of the eye. Like, you know, there is vulgar things in there.
Oh, there's some messed up shit in Borderlands, definitely.
And 2K Australia developed the pre-sequel.
Sure.
So could you imagine if they were like, that game can't be sold here? So you're just telling us that people who live in your country who worked on this can't even enjoy it with the people that live around them. You know, like it blows my mind. Like I know that there's been other places, hell, even GameStop on military bases. Like we have like stores on military bases pulled the Medal of Honor.
Right.
Because of you could play as, you know, terrorists in multiplayer, mm-hmm. and they thought that would have been damaging to armed forces.
Yeah, well, that was a mistake.
Right, and they were they were mad about that because they were like, sure. Yo, we want to play this game. Like, yeah. You know, so it just, I don't understand how you can say no. You know what? Make it as hard as you can possibly get to actually buy it, but don't mm-hmm. let people not able to buy it. It's
just really strange because I think that this specific scenario was people that were clamoring for the game to be banned because of the violence against women in particular. So I think that what we were probably seeing in this case was people in a certain organization that are upset about one specific thing that's mm-hmm. in the game that all group together and make a lot of noise, say, hey, this is bullshit that this is in this game, probably have no idea, probably have seen, you know, gameplay or seen something that really hits a nerve for them and they make it this huge fucking movement, you know, to be able to get this thing removed when they don't really understand what it is. And then it's not the game board that says, okay, you know, this has to be taken down. It's the retailer because, right. You know, they don't want to catch fire. They don't want to get the flack from these people for right. selling this game. So they take it down. And, you know, it's a difficult subject because on one hand, Grand Theft Auto is extremely violent and they have some terrible shit in there and you definitely don't want your kids or maybe even regular people, you know, playing some of that shit. But I don't know. I'm kind of in the camp that there's nothing that I've seen in a video game that is worse than something that I've seen in a movie. The only thing that's different is that when you're watching a movie or a television show like Game of Thrones or Sopranos or something crazy that's on HBO where people are getting fucking heads lopped off and shot in the face and crazy shit happening all the time. The only difference is that in a movie or in television, it's passive participation. You know what mm-hmm. I mean? You're just sitting there and witnessing it. Right. You know, you have no actual interaction with what's going on, where in a video game, you have some control over what's happening. And that's why people draw this line. You know, this is not a movie, which is totally okay when you see someone get violently, brutally murdered or raped mm-hmm. in movies and television. That's totally okay because it's fucking art. You know, it's the cinema, it's television. It's okay to tell these stories because they're just stories. But in a video game, you pick up a controller and it's the same fucking thing and then suddenly it's different. It's like these people are like, you know, well, kids don't know it's real. Well, fuck you. You know what I mean? It's your fault. You teach your kids what's fucking real and not. You really think these kids are sitting up and picking up a controller and they're like, okay, it's fine for me to, go and mow down a bunch of civilians in this video game. So I'm going to walk out on the street and do the same fucking thing.
Right.
It
makes me wonder if, which Call of Duty was that?
No Russian. It was Call of Duty for Modern Warfare 2? Modern Warfare 2. We go to the airport?
Airport? Yeah. I mean, in the very beginning of the game, it tells you that there's a scene that you might not want to partake in, yes or no. And there was no achievements attached to it.
Yeah.
So you could say no and not miss out on anything.
It's the same thing in 3. In 3, it was different. It was really cheesy of Infinity Ward to do it the way they did. But it was, instead of like going through the airport and mowing down all the civilians, which you could choose to not do, by the way.
Right.
They were going to kill you at the end anyway, because they knew you weren't what you were saying. But no, in 3, you're like, the camera follows this young boy in the middle of a city and a nuclear bomb goes off and you see the kid die. Mm-hmm. And that was a similar thing where they were like, this terrible thing happens. And, if you don't want to see it, we're not going to spoil what it is, but, we're going to warn you up front.
Right. And it's not going to take away from the experience.
It's a story. You know what I mean? It's meant to elicit some sort of response in one way or another.
Right.
And if people are okay with it in books and movies and television, and sometimes it'll catch flack, but it seems like when people are yelling and screaming about censoring these video games, that they don't draw the same conclusions on something else. And I'm not necessarily going to agree with you if you did, but at least be fucking consistent. Right. You know what I mean? Like, think of it on the same level. I know that you don't have the interaction in television and movies, but it's the same fucking thing. You're still witness to the same terrible shit. It's just you don't have a controller in your hands.
But on the flip side, though, in a video game, you could also choose not to do that. Mm-hmm. Whereas in a video, you can't choose to not see it.
This is very true.
Because I feel like movies and books, granted, you could leave, stop reading, but it's more forced upon you.
Right.
You have the choice in a video game to do that. When I play GTA, the only time that I remember something like that was forced upon me was in a cutscene.
Oh no. The scene in GTA 5 where you play as Trevor.
Yeah.
You're forced to torture someone.
I don't remember that.
And it's a story mission. Like, you can't not do it. Like, you wouldn't be able to beat the game if you didn't do that shit. And for me as a gamer, like, it was tough for me to do that. You know what I mean? Because I can't imagine. I don't know what it's like, because there's first person mode in this game now.
Yeah.
I don't know about that scene. Like, if that scene is in first person, like, that was fucking hard to do.
I don't remember the mission.
You were Trevor, and Trevor was with a guy in like a basement, and he was torturing this guy to get information about something. And then, because, GTA 5, you can switch between main characters within the mission or whatever. So like, half of the mission you were Trevor, and half of the mission you were Michael, and you were driving a car somewhere and you were going to do something else. And then at the same time, Trevor was torturing this guy for information. I don't know, it was last year that I played it. I can't remember exactly the story scenario. But yeah, you had to like torture this guy with like a car battery, or you had like a hammer, and you had like the waterboard, and you were forced to do this. Like, it's like you stood at a table and you had to pick between these torture implements.
Right.
And I like stood there. I was like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
Like, do I have to do this? Like, can I just wait for the mission? Right. Can I just go to Michael and drive the car?
All right.
But you can't, you have to do it. And that was a little bit tough for me, but still, it's a fucking story.
Yeah. But what's any different of seeing Liam Neeson do it? What's any different than seeing waterboarding in anything?
Right.
Like, I get that there's interaction, but there's also fourth wall stuff, because it's like, pick which weapon. And when you hover over it, it's like, hit this big floaty button. And it's like, that doesn't happen in real life.
Right.
You have to consciously make that decision in real life if you're going to be a terrible person.
Yeah. I think people just get confused and think that it's like some morally wrong thing where, you are holding the controller and you're doing this thing, and apparently you're too ignorant to understand that it's wrong. And I would imagine that this is kids who don't know any better, that they're worried about the game getting in the hands of
But they're
kids
not 18 anyway, so they couldn't buy it. So.
You know what I mean? Well, that's the thing. If these kids are playing these games, it's not because the system has made it so that they could do this. It's because their parents are not doing the right thing, and they're giving these kids this game that has this terrible shit in it, which is a completely different conversation.
Right.
But to think that you don't understand right and wrong because you're witness to it or because you're interacting with the game and doing something that's bad. Just, it doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Now I can see if there's something, it's like some actual terrible content that's happening in this game. You know, the stuff that's going on with women's rights and stuff, and the way that women in general are being depicted in some video games. In a lot of ways, I agree with some of the things that they say. In some instances, I don't. We don't have to get into it, but I mean, there are going to be things in any type of media that maybe are wrong, that maybe shouldn't be shown. But in this scenario, I mean, I think that they're just trying to crucify something. Right. You know what I mean? Like, this is a mature game and there's terrible stuff in it. But I don't know, it is Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, it's hard to defend it sometimes because there's some really bad shit that's in there. But at the same time, like, you are an adult and you are able to make these decisions on whether you can handle it or not. And if you can't, put the controller down. Right. You have to be like, you can't tell someone that they just can't. Right. That's taking your freedom away from them. And in a lot of ways, it is censorship. You're right.
I don't get it. You know, I feel like that they have the system in place and it does some good. You know, obviously if a 16-year-old walks up with GTA, they don't have ID. There's no parent. It's the law. You can't sell it. Mm-hmm. But if you're 18 years old and you do something terrible in real life and you claim that the video game made you do it, there's something else wrong.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. I mean, I think at the flip side, does that mean PETA's going to get up in arms about Far Cry 4?
Oh, I'm sure they already have.
You know,
I'm sure that they already have.
But it's not been taken down anywhere.
But that's the thing is, I guess, because we're closer to video games than we are to like movies and television. So I feel like we hear it when these activist groups go after video games, you know, but do we hear about it as much when they go after movies and television? Like, do they go after it as much in movies and television, or is there just not as much coverage on that? You know what I mean? Do these same groups go after the same sort of content that happens in movies and cinema? I don't know, because I feel like I'm more likely to see the information as it's coming to me in a video game standpoint.
I just think that the video games has a bigger impact on the media. You know, if a movie isn't shown in a movie theater, it could be half a dozen reasons why it's not shown.
Yeah.
You know, they just have other more pressing things to show, or there's a brand new movie that comes out and they want to show it in all of their theaters, you know, like, you know, there's so many other things.
Well, I agree that I just think that it's bigger in media because it's this hot button issue, even in, you know, politics, where it's just violence in video games is this big thing.
Yeah.
But that's always been sort of my view, is like, if you're going to put this much scrutiny on violence in video games, why aren't you doing it in other forms of media, in other forms of entertainment? Why don't you put that scrutinizing eye on other stuff that shows the same thing? It's so unbalanced.
I mean,
if you choose to ignore it from what's going on in the stuff that you grew up with, you know what I mean? Because it's not going to be 20-year-old kids that have grown up with video games that know the difference between right and wrong. You know what I mean? That are sitting there and complaining about what's in this video games, unless it is absolutely heinous. And there's some situations where it's like, that should not be in there.
Hatred.
You know what I mean? Like, that shit should not be in there. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or 40 or 60 years old. If there's something that's terrible and you know the difference between right and wrong, you should be able to say, yeah, that's probably fucked up.
Right.
You know, but it seems like it's these people that are not of our generation, that don't understand video games as much, that see a piece of story, of fiction that's in a medium that they don't quite understand, that is exactly the same as what they would see in something that they do understand, and that's where they get this disconnect. It's like, if I saw this in movies and TV, that's okay, because I know it's not real, because I've grown up with movies and television my entire life. But this video game thing, what the fuck is this? There's this killing going on, and you have a controller, and this is, it's just,
I mean, it seems
very ignorant.
You can pinpoint it to what became the hysteria, though. How many school shootings do you know of prior to video games? That as soon as that one happened and they were like, that kid played a lot of video games, they had a scapegoat. That's like where it went, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there have been quite a number of school shootings in the past decade or so, or since the beginning of video games, but there definitely has been terrible school shootings and terrible violence in general that's happened before that.
And I'm not saying that there hasn't been. What I'm saying is that, like, I remember Columbine, and you know, he listened to Eminem and he played video games, and that was the stigma right then. That
was it? And there was this stuff with like Marilyn Manson music, and that was a thing. Like they're always going to be.
They're looking for scapegoats. That's what they want. They don't want to blame parents or where they grew up or if they were abused or whatever. They want to blame something else that's intangible.
Or if they're just fucking terrible people. Like there doesn't always have to be an answer, you know. And that's why people are so hasty to jump to these conclusions. You know what I mean? But sometimes people are just fucked up.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that's like, why are you so quick to jump to the excuse that something is influencing them in this negative way, which I'm open to the idea, and I'm sure that it's correct that there are scenarios where people are influenced in a negative way and that turns them to this. But more often than not, there's something that's wrong with these people. And it's got to be a mental thing. You know what I mean? I don't believe that this fucking like a television program or a movie or a video game is going to turn 1,000 people into mass murderers. It's going to turn one person into a mass murderer because he was already going to be a mass murderer because he's fucked up.
Right. I mean, look at Charles Manson.
Right.
Like something as pure as the Beatles' music apparently made him kill people.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So,
well, wasn't that situation with the Manson family related to Roman Polanski and movies? Like, wasn't that?
I thought it was Helter Skelter.
Well, I know that was the thing that they scrawled on the walls, but I'm pretty sure that was Roman Polanski's house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, again, we're showing our ignorance in history right here about that particular scenario, and I've not read about it before, but I'm pretty sure that's the tie-in, showing our age.
But you see what I'm saying, though? Like, a good thing could still, in the wrong hands, can be used as ammo, so I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Some real talk. Got some science, got some
history,
some videos, some very poor history. Man, I Googled it.
One thing that I thought was funny that you didn't mention about the talks is PlayStation 20 years, PS4 is going to have an exclusive system. Well, a skinned system.
That's right.
That looks like the PS1.
Yeah, it looks so cool.
Like, I thought that was going to be like one of the first things you said.
Dude, there's so much news the past couple of weeks. It took me forever to get the list narrowed down. There's a lot of stuff that we missed.
We didn't even talk about the Game Awards.
Oh, fuck. Okay, here, we'll run through it real quick. This is going to be like the longest podcast ever.
Let's just mention, though, that, well, I want to know, do you think this is Jeff Keighley's way of trying to say that the VGAs is not a correct way to give out awards?
It's not a correct way to give out awards.
Because he had 25 like journalists and people like in the video game. And then he had like 8 to 10 like heads of companies, like the head of Nintendo, Phil Spencer, like he had a board of people.
That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. And I don't understand why it's taken them this long. I think that it's a step in the right direction as far as proving that video games are a reputable entertainment source. That's what I always wanted to see, which is like an academy, of just the way that the same way that they do the Oscars, which is they have, or the Screen Actors Guild Awards or something, where it's like, these are people that are in the industry. These are movie makers. These are actors. These are people that know the source material or know the material that they're working with enough to be able to say, like, this is real quality. Like, this deseres it. So
Instead
why was there never that with games?
I don't know.
So it seems like a no-brainer. Like, yeah, get the developers, get the fucking, the software engineers, get the people that are coding, get the people that are voice actors to go out and nominate and vote on their peers, and make that the stuff that are actually going into the decisions for these games. And I feel like that holds a lot more weight within the community.
Right.
So that's awesome that they did it that way. But yeah, we'll run through them and then we'll wrap it up. So Game Awards this week, best indie game went to Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
We're going to skip some of them because I don't really care.
Yeah.
Best action game went to Shadow of Mordor, which is awesome. Shadow of Mordor. It's funny because these games are like the ones that I spent my time on for the most part.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Best narrative, Valiant Hearts. Awesome. I guess Gone Home was the end of last year.
Yeah.
That could have gone up for indie game. An aside, the developer from Gone Home, announced that they're working on a new game. Don't remember it. Didn't put it in the notes. So fuck me. Best shooter went to Far Cry 4. That's pretty cool. Sports or racing game was Mario Kart 8. Again, no brainer. Very big success for Nintendo Mario Kart. Best fighting game, Super Smash Brothers Wii U. Again, not a huge surprise. What other fighting games come out this year? Killer Instinct? Fuck off. Best mobile game, Hearthstone.
Yep.
Got the Hearths. God, I fucking love Hearthstone, man. I just can't get enough. It's so good. But kill me now and send me to Hearthstone heaven.
I don't think there is.
And game of the year, 2014.
It's pretty shocking.
Dragon Age Inquisition. It's not shocking. It's not shocking to me. If I was going to give game of the year at this point of all the stuff that I've played, it's got to be it for me.
So,
though Hearthstone, that's a toss up. It might go to Hearthstone for me. I wonder, dude, having some sort of conniption over there. I would have liked to see what was the follow up or the runner up.
Right.
You're trying to jump up here and it's not working for you.
So, two things. One you mentioned, one you didn't, but which makes me laugh. Best shooter, Far Cry 4.
Yeah.
Not labeled as a shooter. Like that's not what
on the case you mean? No,
I mean like when you think about it, like if you want to sell Far Cry 4 to somebody, it's an action adventure game. It's a sandbox action adventure.
It's shooter RPG is sort of what I think of it as.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think it's more about the story and the things that you do more than just shooting people.
It's definitely at the core. It's an adventure game more than anything else. It's a great adventure game.
Because when I think of shooters, you think of Duty, Battlefield, stuff like that. But then best online experience, Destiny, which cracks me up because you're telling me that a game that is only online and then games like Call of Duty, you know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy.
It's probably just because, it was the best online experience of the year because, it did bring a whole community of gamers together to go through this adventure.
Sure.
Okay. And even though the game is not this huge quality game where maybe in 20 years you're going to be like, what are the greatest games of our age? You're not going to put Destiny on that list.
Right.
And I can't imagine that it was going to go up for game of the year just because of the critical reviews that it got. But as far as like sheer number of people that played that game and are still playing that game online and going through this, yeah, I guess I can understand. And with all the launch issues that are going on with like Master Chief Collection and even World of Warcraft right at the beginning,
that was no fault to Blizzard though. Sure. Let's just be clear. Yeah. But you know what I really like about this, and we can wrap it up after this, is that not only did they have the panel to vote on, like the major things, but then they also had the fan vote, which was most anticipated game, which that's fine for fans to vote on. What was it,
Destiny?
It was Witcher 3. Most anticipated. For next year.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they had Esports Player of the Year, which I don't know who this person is. He plays Call of Duty.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Deshat. That's his handle, I'm assuming.
Sure.
Ninjas in Pajamas was Esports Team of the Year for Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I saw that best video game personality was Total Biscuit.
Trending Gamer, yeah. Best fan creation was Twitch Plays Pokemon. Like I like how
that was huge.
I like how they have the here's game of the year, here's best shooter and all that stuff, and then they're like, but we're not saying that fans don't have a part of it. We want these awards to be critically acclaimed by people in the industry, but we want to know what you think. And then they gave things.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I would be interested to see if the second annual Video Game Awards, because this was their inaugural year, will the fan ones change? I'm sure most anticipated would still be there, but you got to figure that esports player and esports team won't always be there. You know what I'm saying? No,
maybe not.
So I think, and Jeff Keighley is a huge person in the video game entertainment. So it's nice to see. Some of the things that were up for some of the awards, I was like,
it's interesting because I feel like, 6 months ago, you look at the end of the year and you're just like, how can they fit all of these great games into one fall, into one winter, into 1 year? There's so many great things coming out. But I think that now we're at the end of the year and we're looking back and I don't feel like it was this huge landmark year for gaming. And I don't even think that this is, what was supposed to be the birth of next gen, which is, the year after launch. It looks like it's going to be next year. And maybe we're always going to think that like next year is going to be the year that the games are great. And the year after that,
nothing
to get to the end of that year, but
nothing against the 5 games that were up for Game of the Year. But did you see who the full nominees were?
Why don't you read them out for us?
Bayonetta 2, Dark Souls 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, which obviously won.
Sure.
Hearthstone, and then Shadows of Mordor.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, like I hate to say it because as much as I enjoyed Dark Souls 2, but Bayonetta's on one platform.
I think Dark Souls 2 is the most shocking to be on there, to be honest.
But Bayonetta 2 is on one platform.
But is largely considered to be one of the best games of the year. I'm pretty sure that IGN is probably going to call Bayonetta Game of the Year.
Okay. But you know what I'm saying?
People
like
fucking love that game.
To me, it's like some of the, like when I was looking at things, I was just like, man, like that seems like an unfair, I also don't know what Games for Change is, but that was kind of cool. Oh, best remaster. Please don't do that next year. Like I hope
I saw that. I was pissed.
Like GTA 5, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were clumped together. The Last of Us, Halo Master Chief Collection, and then Tomb Raider. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess as the first year, you can only be, handed things that came out. But Call of Duty, Destiny, Far Cry 4, Titanfall, and Wolfenstein were all best shooter.
Yeah.
And it's just like, in my mind, Far Cry 4 does not come up as a shooter to me, So I don't know. But hey, it's about giving accreditation to awards. So
sure,
the first year might be like Rocky because it's the first year,
So we still have to do, we got a couple weeks left in 2014. We're going to have to do an Input Delays Game of the Year. We're going to have to do our own Game Awards. Well, maybe we'll do that, next podcast or the podcast after. Mm-hmm. We'll set up okay. So here's what we'll do. We'll plan it out. Well, hopefully I'll remember.
It'll have to be the first one that launches in January.
Next week, we'll have to do nominees.
Okay.
We'll sit down. Hopefully it's all of us. Hopefully Planamento will be here. We'll sit down and we'll come up with the nominees for the categories. And then the week after, we will do Input Delays Games of the Year in different categories.
Okay.
But if we had to, if you had to choose right now, what would be your Game of the Year? And we'll make cases for it later. We'll go into a deeper discussion.
Right now, based on what I've played or just things that I've seen?
Sure.
Man, that's a toughie.
I would say what you've played.
I think I'm tied between Far Cry 4 and Dragon Age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I checked out Far Cry, and I've only played like an hour of it, but just that first hour, I'm just like, man, this is actually really good.
Yeah. I'm still waiting. I still just don't have time to play it.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. For me, it's going to be tough for me to sleep at night trying to choose between Dragon Age and Hearthstone. Hearthstone has become a huge thing in my life, and that sounds weird. And I'm not
sorry, Carrie.
I don't play it as much as I think people would expect, as much as I love it, as much as I talk about it. But watching streams and watching YouTube videos and looking at the news for the new cards and thinking up strategies, and just as much time as I've thought about it, listening to podcasts and going on websites, and like my actual game time of playing Hearthstone is probably a quarter of total Hearthstone stuff, that I do, because so much of it is just enjoying the strategy of it and the personalities that are behind it. It's become a lot more than just what game do I love playing? And I do love playing it, but it's more than that. I watch YouTube videos of Hearthstone all the fucking time. And, for that, it would be very hard for me to justify some other game. But Dragon Age has just been awesome to play. So it's going to be a tough one. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Somebody will sway me, I'm sure.
To be fair to Hearthstone, though, I mean, it was also nominated for Best Online Experience. So
yeah, well, because it's a brand new game that built this huge community of gamers. It's awesome.
I feel like this year there was a bunch of indie and not necessarily AAA titles. I mean, granted, Hearthstone is published by a major company, but like I feel like this year kind of changed gaming. You know, like you saw the hands of some developers that they were obviously not ready for next gens. And, you know, it's 2015 is going to be really interesting. And if the fucking Division doesn't come out, I'm going to have a fucking conniption. God damn it.
Oh, man. I mean, this year, as much as you think about like the AAA titles, I mean, it's not the whole picture if you just look at that, because I feel like it's a great time to be a gamer, you know, and because the AAA games is not it, you know, indie games and online games. And I mean, how long did you guys talk about that stupid fucking browser game and mobile games? And, you know, like there are classifying what a video game is not as easy. You know, these indie developers have found success, you know, with a much smaller budget, maybe even crowdfunded, that becomes a huge phenomenon. Or you can have some tiny game that, you know, is a big developer, granted, you know, but Hearthstone is different. Hearthstone is weird. Yeah. And to have the success that it had, it gives you a lot of faith for what's coming out in the future. And, sure. You know, you're right. It has been an awesome year for games. And we'll,
I mean, hats off to all those indie developers out there, though, man. Sure. I mean, like the stuff that they're...
God, you got to put that on silent.
It's on vibrate. I don't understand why it's going off. You got to put, like, there's so many games that I've played on Steam that were either greenlit or they're early access or they're from, you know, some one-off company. And it's just like, are they going to be Game of the Year? No. But were they awesome games? Yeah. If I never play I Am Bread again, that does not mean that the game is bad. I needed to play it. And it was just so funny. And it was just like frustrating and hilarious at the same time. And it's just like, I'm glad that at 27, I was able to enjoy that. Whereas if I was 13 right now, I might not get it.
Yeah.
You know, like I might not understand the person. I mean, I haven't played Papers, Please yet, but you guys talk about it so much.
It's really good.
Goat Simulator. I mean, like these games would never existed 5 years ago.
Sure. Oh, and I mean, we give a lot of praise. There's a lot of crap out there.
Sure.
You know, but,
looking at you,
but at the same time, you know, even these big developers, at some point, you know, you work on this team that puts out this great game. At some point in your career, you made shit. You know what I mean? At some point, you made something that wasn't good. It's not, you know, to make fun of whatever that product is or, you know, that person's individual ability, but, you know, you have to fail to succeed at some point. So even though there are a lot of like maybe Steam greenlit games or indie games that don't quite work, I still have faith that those people are going to move on and make great things. And in the gaming scene that we have now and the way that, you know, the gaming industry works, those people can move on and find success even without a whole lot of financial backing or whatever. You fail, you try again, you know, and make something cool.
Unless you made Murder Soul Suspect.
Oh man.
Poor guys. Can I put that in? Can I put that in Nick's Game of the Year and it just be that game?
I mean, hey man, I fucking loved Divinity as well. And
hey, that was up for role playing.
Fantastic game. Also, indie. Kickstarted.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, let's wrap it up. Man, we rambled. This is going to be almost a 2-hour podcast.
That's fine. That's what happens when there's only two of us. We're not grounded.
I liked it.
Were we floaty? Oh, man.
We were a little floaty.
That's
all right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for this stranger than normal Input Delay podcast. And as always, I want to remind everyone to go out onto the interwebs in the series of tubes this week and throw some of your positivity that you may or may not have. Create some positivity if you have none. Throw that positivity that you've just created or that you have an abundance of. Throw that towards some content creators that make cool shit because they make cool stuff. Some people don't like it. They're super negative. They're really loud and it hurts their feelings. Go out there, be louder and be positiver.
More positive.
Positivicious. Do that.
Or just make sure you're not a dick, too.
Just don't be a dick.
Yeah. Don't be a dick and say something nice about somebody.
Yeah. Do that, too. Yeah. Wiser words have not been spoken. Except...
I'm sure they have been. Sometime in histories.
Well,
in the past.
If that's the case, we'll have no idea.
Nope. We won't know.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Later.